The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean and the Pan American Health Organization have warned that the region must control the pandemic in order to reactivate its economy. Italy's unemployment rate increased by 8.8% from February to June. Israelis continue to mobilize this Thursday in the fifth week of demonstrations calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Katrina Goss. The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean and the Pan American Health Organization launched a joint report virtually this Thursday, warning that the region must control the pandemic in order to reactivate its economy. The launch of the report, entitled Health and the Economy, a convergence needed to address COVID-19 and retake the path of sustainable development in Latin America and the Caribbean, was followed by a simultaneous virtual press conference by ECLAC's Executive Secretary, Alicia Barcena, and PAHO Director, Carissa Etienne. The two officials stressed that the region is now the most affected in the world by the coronavirus pandemic and will face ongoing economic difficulties if it lifts restrictions too fast and fails to curb infections.
Open too fast, or you risk a resurgence of COVID-19 that could erase the advantage gained over the past few months. You cannot reopen if you are in the stage of community transmission. The adjusting of measures should not be taken all at once, but should start at the subnational level in areas with the lowest incidence and gradually increase to the other phases.
Residents of Ciudad del Este, a Paraguayan city on the border with Argentina and Brazil, protested against the government's decision to return to a stricter lockdown phase due to an increase in COVID-19 cases. The local population has insisted that they will struggle to survive as the government has failed to offer any economic support amid the lockdown. Protesters blocked a major highway and took to the streets in the centre of the city of a little more than 600,000 inhabitants, calling for the measures to be relaxed. Paraguay has reported a total of almost 5,000 coronavirus cases and a death toll of 46. In Brazil, the Supreme Court minister, together with the congressional president, announced this Thursday that they will work together to pass a law to prevent former judges from running for political office for a period of 8 years after they leave the bench. Our correspondent Brian Meir explains the motives behind the move.
Minister Dias Toffoli, together with Congressional President Rodrigo Maia, just announced that they're going to work together to pass a law to prevent former judges for running for political office for a period of 8 years after they leave the bench. This is widely viewed as an attempt to bar former Lava Jato judge Sergio Moro for running for office in 2022. Now, a lot of foreign magazines like Time, foreign news organizations, and even national ones have cited Moro as a hopeful in the 2022 presidential elections. If this law is passed, it'll put an end to it. And while some people might complain that this is a kind of abomination of justice or a law of exception, they have to remember that Moro spent most of 2018 bending the law, working outside of the law, and violating the law on several occasions to block Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva for running for president at a time when he was leading all polls with over double the support of the nearest rival. And the result of this process was a neo-fascist takeover under the leadership of former military dictatorship army captain Jair Bolsonaro. And one of the first things that Bolsonaro did upon taking office was create a new special position, a special cabinet ministry for Moro called Super Justice Supreme.
Tropical storm Isaías brought floods to Puerto Rico and has now moved to the Dominican Republic, while its effects are already being felt in the eastern provinces of Cuba. Sustained winds of 50 km per hour and gusts of 85 km per hour were reported Thursday afternoon in eastern Cuba, and local authorities are on alert. On its passage over Puerto Rico, the storm resulted in potentially life-threatening flash flooding and knocked out power for hundreds of thousands of residents. This is the 9th named storm system of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro offered details on the achievements of the Venezuela Bella mission to improve urban spaces this Thursday. President Maduro explained that the program has the goal of restoring, repairing and renovating 1,500 places of worship, with works on 993 already completed. The Venezuelan president also informed that vertical gyms, which have been installed in several urban neighborhoods, could be reconditioned to receive COVID-19 patients if necessary. It was also announced that as part of the program to renovate urban spaces, the national government, through the mayor's office of Libertador municipality, handed over the completely restored Simón Bolívar Square in Caracas, even in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. And Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, speaking at the grand opening of an Iranian supermarket in the capital, Caracas, stressed that it was an example of the positive bilateral relations between Venezuela and Iran. The Vice President said the opening of the store represented a triumph for the two countries blockaded and sanctioned by the United States, which came together to defend their right to free trade despite the difficulties. She noted that the private sectors of the two countries had come together in order to offer new products for Venezuelans and Iranians alike. Welcome back to From the South. Italian authorities reported that 600,000 people have lost their jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to figures from the National Institute of Statistics, from February to June, the unemployment rate increased by 8.8%. In addition, the data showed that since the 6th month of 2020, there was a fall in employment levels and a progressive expansion of the number of people looking for a job. June saw a 0.6% increase in unemployment compared to the previous month, with a higher incidence among young people, where the rate increased from 25.7% to 27.6%. The Italian Senate this Thursday voted to strip far-right former Interior Minister Matteo Salvini of his parliamentary immunity, thus paving the way for possible charges against him for refusing to allow 160 rescued migrants to dock in Italy last year.
I hereby announce the results of the roll call vote in the question of parliamentary immunity to deny authorization to proceed to the judging upon Article 96 of the Constitution of Senator Matteo Salvini in his role as temporary Minister of Interior. Votes in favor 141, votes against 149, abstain 1. The Senate does not approve. Upon Article 135, paragraph 8 of the regulation, given there was no absolute majority in the members of the Assembly, the conclusions of the Parliamentary Committee are to be rejected.
Spanish health authorities stressed on Thursday that the country is not experiencing a second wave of COVID-19 despite a fresh surge in cases.
Yesterday, 1,229 cases were diagnosed throughout Spain, and in the last 7 days, a total of 2,158 have shown symptoms. It is true that those diagnosed in the last 7 days are many more. There are 13,391. This reflects the significant number of asymptomatic cases that are currently detected. There are over 60% of detected cases as asymptomatic. It's true that there is transmission. It's true that we are still in an epidemic phase to which we have to be very careful. But it's also true that as the surveillance and control of the epidemic is taking place at the moment, it gives us a lot of confidence. Obviously, not total confidence. The risk is still there, but it gives us a lot of confidence that we can work well and control the virus now. A few months ago, we saw what happened, but we are now in a very, very favorable situation.
Several dozen tourist guides protested in the French capital on Thursday to demand government support in the face of the COVID-19 triggered economic crisis.
As most of my colleagues, I haven't had any revenue for several months now. We need a way to survive until the business goes back to normal. But given the situation in the US, it is obvious that the business won't come back to normal before summer of next year at earliest. So in the meantime, we need to survive.
The state has now given 18 billion euros to help tourism, to help the tourist industry. The guides have received nothing from this, and this is why we're requesting the government to help us to survive this year, and also to ask them to change the unemployment laws so that we're allowed a white year, as we like to call it. That is to say that this year will not be counted because people will be out of benefits very shortly, already running out.
Ukrainian and Iranian authorities started official talks on Thursday over compensation for the families of passengers killed on board Ukraine International Airlines flight 737-800, which was accidentally downed by an Iranian missile earlier this year.
Negotiations to begin, and I welcome the fact that they finally started. I expect the process isn't going to be easy, but we are working to achieve the goal, to deliver justice. And Ukraine's foreign ministry will do everything possible to achieve maximum results. This will help ease, at least partially, the pain and grief of the relatives that they have to endure for more than half a year already. Justice will prevail, no matter how much time and efforts will be needed for that.
In Bosnia and Herzegovina, the town of Mostar registered temperatures of 105 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade on Thursday, marking the hottest day of this year. Residents are used to the summer heat, but only a few dared to leave their homes and cool down in a local river. Mostar usually attracts thousands of visitors every year, but due to the coronavirus pandemic, streets and hotels remain empty. According to local media, the pandemic has devastated the economy, as the majority of the local population relies on tourism as their main source of income. Government officials in the Japanese capital, Tokyo, reported a new daily record of 367 coronavirus cases this Thursday. Since the beginning of the outbreak in Japan, a total of over 12,000 positive cases have been confirmed in the capital region. Tokyo has about 300 health centres offering PCR diagnostic tests. To date, Japan has confirmed over 34,000 COVID-19 cases and a death toll of over 1,000. Speaking at a press conference in Beijing on Thursday, a spokesperson for China's Ministry of National Defense stressed that the United States should abandon its Cold War mentality and work to promote bilateral military ties with China.
It has long been a well-known fact that the United States takes an approach to the international rules in which it only uses those in its favor, but discards those not to their liking, and it plays up unilateral bullying hegemony under the banner of America First. Unlike the United States that has constantly pulled out from organizations and scrapped agreements, China joined the Arms Trade Treaty on the very day the US withdrew from the World Health Organization, fulfilling its international responsibilities and obligations with concrete actions. In the recent time, the US side has constantly expanded its military ties with Taiwan region, promoting arms sales to Taiwan, hyping up the US and Taiwan joint trainings, which has sent a seriously mistaken signal to the Democratic Progressive Party administration. We hope that the US side will abandon the Cold War mentality and zero-sum game mindset, but view the bilateral relations between the two countries and two armies of China and the United States rationally. Stop making negative comments and taking negative actions, but do some meaningful things to promote the relations between the two countries and two armies and safeguard the common interests of both sides.
We have more news coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Demonstrations calling for the resignation of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continued this Thursday. Thousands of protesters gathered in front of Netanyahu's official residency in Jerusalem in the fifth week of demonstrations over the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, opposition figures have stressed that Netanyahu lacks the integrity to hold the post of Prime Minister, given his trial on corruption charges. Security forces have been reinforced at the PM's residency as the number of demonstrators continues to grow. United Nations officials noted on Thursday that 60% of the population in Zimbabwe is projected to be food insecure by the end of the year, while calling for international support to prevent this potential humanitarian disaster. Zimbabwe continues to be subject to EU and US sanctions.
Zimbabwe, where 60% of the population is projected to be food insecure by the end of the year, the World Food Programme today appealed for an additional $250 million. WFP said that the already severe hunger crisis is being exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. WFP is calling for international support to prevent what it calls a potential humanitarian catastrophe. A nationwide lockdown has led to massive joblessness in urban areas, while hunger in rural areas is on the rise due to the return of now unemployed migrants to their villages and the absence of vital remittances.
The World Health Organization warned on Thursday that Africa is likely to have higher figures of coronavirus infections than the official numbers, as there is a lack of testing.
testing up in African countries. We need to increase the testing, and we'll be convinced that we are seeing the correct situation when we see high rates of testing with a positivity at around 5%. This is the case now in relatively few countries. So there's still a lot of work to do to scale up the testing and appreciate the true situation. So conclusion, yes, there is some underestimation. We have seen that in a number of countries that have increased testing, but as we keep saying, we do not think there is a hugely underestimated situation, and we particularly don't think there are, thousands of people dying on the continent undetected. Testing has been one of the biggest challenges that African countries have faced because of the poor availability of testing kits on the global market. This is something we're working very hard with the Africa CDC and other partners to help our countries to have access to.
The NGO Women's Solidarity for Peace and Integral Development continues to work to tackle sexual violence in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, while accompanying women, children and men who have been victims of abuse.
We are the first responders who meet the victims of sexual violence. For the month of January, we have received a total of 46 victims of sexual violence. They are given these antivirals. They are offered to morning after pill in order to avoid unwanted pregnancy. We are here to help the patients. When we receive them, we first listen to the problems. We look for solutions to the problems, identifying the root of the problem. We do this with patients. We are here to help to find them so they can decide themselves what to do. We are not here to tell them what they have to do. We document these cases in order to refer them to justice system, specifically the military justice, as they are competent authority to judge crimes committed by armed groups or governmental forces. They are then obligated as a jurisdiction to document and investigate these human rights violations. This hearing also have an educational role. They send a strong signal not to be presumed perpetrators, but also to reassure the population, stating that justice is taking place, it is doing its job, renewing the confidence.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesu English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.